Yeah, this is going to be such an exciting one because both of these players actually already fought against each other in round 11 of this tournament. Rajan's still chasing for his first major victory. You can see he's finished top 8, he's finished top 4, he's finished in the finals of regionals, and of course started the season off with a top 8 finish at Charlotte Regionals and is looking to get that first major championship victory.
And really could do it because this Miraidon team has been taking some numbers. This Miraidon has been so elite. The Hadron engine, the Terra Electric, the choice specs, it's been dishing out a ton of damage.
Yeah, it's one of the most creative teams from the early meta, and the idea is that it's super oppressive to play against. Miraidon just does ridiculous amounts of damage when you have helping hand support from Farigiraf. There are a lot of cool plays you can make with this team, and if you ever make a mistake against it, and Whimsicott, for example, pivots in while something is protecting, Encore can really trap you in as well. So many tools to work with here. Discharge, a move that used to be very popular in VGC way back in the day, hasn't seen too much use more recently, but works really well with this team when you've got that Ursaluna Blood Moon as well as that Ground Terra on Farigiraf.
There's no Earthquake though this time around.
No, yep, just Discharge.
And that's going to be pretty valuable as well. You have a couple of other resists on the team, which makes it nice to also be able to bring in. But Justin Burns, this is another player that is hoping to add a regional championship title, another one, into this long list of accomplishments, and another player that's also been around for a really long time.
Yeah, he got top 4 at NAIC back in 2022, and Justin was one of the most prominent Calyrex Ice players in that format as well, actually pairing it with Palkia, and so it's no surprise to me that he has returned and using Calyrex Ice Rider once again. Of course, this is kind of the default Calyrex Ice Rider composition that a lot of players have opted in for this tournament. That Raging Bolt slot is normally the one that is most flexible, but you've got a ton of offense. You don't necessarily need to rely on Trick Room because you've got Pelipper and Urshifu as well as a fast mode, and you can deal large amounts of damage with Pelipper protecting Calyrex as well. And so a lot of things to pay attention to in this matchup, but I think turn 1 and turn 2 will heavily dictate how the battle goes because often you want to just lead Incineroar Miraidon here if you're Rajan and look to just put on massive amounts of pressure immediately.
So then do you lead the Ice Rider Calyrex if you're Justin?
I think so. Ice Rider Calyrex and Amoonguss is one lead that he can go with. Urshifu plus Amoonguss is another lead that I know he's gone with in this matchup. And there it is, Amoonguss and Calyrex Ice Rider.
Okay, so for
and
Justin,
that's
his leads of choice, and I think they heard you, and you're just that good, Aaron, because you also called out the Miraidon and the Incineroar here for Rajan.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if these players have already gone with the exact same leads against each other before. So there's actually a lot to consider here, right? Normally against Miraidon, it looks pretty easy to just go for a Protect with both Pokemon, but one thing Rajan can do is hard switch the Incineroar out into Whimsicott. Whimsicott then applies Encore pressure. However, Justin can counteract that by going simply for something like Glacial Lance and Pollen Puff and immediately knock Whimsicott out if it switches in. And so there are a lot of mind games here on turn 1. That's why I heavily emphasize where I think like the first 2 turns of this battle will really dictate the pace.
I really wish we had seen more of those games,
yeah.
right? Because having those 6 games under Justin's belt can really help figure out maybe how Rajan might want to play this, and if you can get into that mental game of figuring out those moves.
Totally. So yeah, I think there's so many options from both ends here. One of the key decisions is, first of all, do you want to Terra with Miraidon? You can see that Rajan's considering it, opting for that Volt Switch. Oh, looks like it's thinking about going for that knockoff onto Calyrex, so splitting damage here immediately. We're not going to see any switches from either side to start the battle.
Yeah, so after we see this terrestrialization on the Miraidon, we get a chance to see how Justin is going to react to this. Because as you said, like, so many options, but we're going to feel out how this turn 1's going to go and see where that's going to take us in this course. But it's a terrestrialization on Justin's side, too.
Yeah, so if you're going for this on the Calyrex Ice Rider, of course it gives you that grass typing that allows you to resist electric type attacks from the opposing side. That's a really, really big deal because Miraidon just does way too much damage. So now at least you have 2 Pokemon on the field, both which resist electric type attacks.
But we've seen what this Miraidon is capable of. Even though it's going in with resisted damage, this Volt Switch into the Amoonguss is still going to do over 50%. Like, that is enormous. That grass typing is not helping you at all.
Yeah, that is so much damage, and that's one of the things that makes this Pokemon so effective. Of course, also setting up that electric train in the beginning of the game means that you don't have to worry about Spore right now, which is a really big deal. And so Farigiraf is going to switch in. It is going to get that defense boost from the electric seed as well.
And there's no way for Justin to be able to shut off this terrain either.
Yeah.
And that's definitely going to be a big deal. That knockoff going to remove this clear amulet from the Ice Rider Calyrex. If you get a pivot in later, you can actually stick those Intimidate drops. But with the Pollen Puff as well, right into the Incineroar, just helping to whittle it away, but calling, as you said, trying to get that Whimsicott if it switched in.
Yeah, I think Rajan here doesn't fall for it this time around, and I suspect that may have happened in previous sets before where Rajan now recognizes, hey, Justin knows this is a play that I can make, right? And so, yeah, ridiculous amounts of damage done into the Amoonguss immediately. And now we're in an interesting spot where Incineroar does put on offensive pressure onto both Pokemon from the opposing side. Getting rid of that clear amulet is also nice because it means you could potentially consider cycling Incineroar out and back in, and suddenly Intimidate will actually be effective. It's going to be Amoonguss starting things off with the Rage Powder just to make sure Flare Blitz does not go into the Calyrex slot.
Yeah, but it's going to also take this Terra Blast from the Farigiraf. It's not going to be enough to remove it, though, but imagine if it did and left that Calyrex vulnerable. The U-turn, though, nice to be able to get that Incineroar out.
Yeah, so safe play there, get rid of the Amoonguss, now allows you to pivot Incineroar out and then back in. And that's a really big deal, right? I think it's weird that we don't see Intimidate happen very much into Calyrex Ice Rider anymore in this format because of Clear Amulet, but actually removing that can pay dividends. First of all, though, it's going to be Whimsicott coming out.
And that's super nice. At least you have the Focus Sash here to keep this Whimsicott on the field. So maybe you're able to go for something else like the Tailwind or even just an Encore, but it also kind of feels a little bad.
You can see how Justin is kind of playing around the threat of Encore, though, right? You just mentioned Encore, which I think is a really good point. And imagine it's like, oh, maybe you want to think about setting up Trick Room, right? Because everything is so fast on Rajan's side. But then if Trick Room gets set up, well, then you can just get Encored right into it. So the Whimsicott being able to pivot in can make this matchup really scary. But I think to Justin's credit, he's done a really good job of distributing damage so far with this Glacial Lance. Urshifu is now out on the field as well, and that does apply a lot of offensive pressure. And so for Rajan, it's all about trying to get Miraidon back in position properly where he can just sweep the game. But you've got to put in some work in order to get to that spot.
Right. And especially because of the Choice Scarf, though. Even though we're going to see the Farigiraf switch out and the Whimsicott's going to go for the Tailwind, this Urshifu still gets a chance to actually strike back as long as it has maybe even opted into trying to Surgeon Strikes the Incineroar, for example. But the Intimidate coming back out, landing onto the Calyrex. Here's the Tailwind now that we saw, and what is Urshifu going to do?
Yeah, I think this is getting a little bit scary. It's actually going to be a U-turn coming out here instead of a Surging Strike. So, of course, there was the possibility of Surging Strike's Glacial Lance. You just get a double knockout there. It would cover for Farigiraf switching out as well. But Rajan opting to go for that U-turn, wants to get the Raging Bolt in, or Justin going for the U-turn, getting Raging Bolt in safely. And I think, yeah, a lot about this is also how do you properly position Miraidon so that it can actually do enough damage to knock out everything in the endgame. Trick Room is actually going to get set up here, so it seems kind of counterintuitive when you have Choice Scarf on the opposing side, but now you've got this Raging Bolt under Trick Room, and Tailwind was just set up, so the speed advantage is definitely on Justin's end. However, you of course have to watch out for the Encore that can come out right now.
But Raging Bolt's also on electric terrain. So, like, think about more damage it gets to do as well on top of the special attack boost it's getting from that booster energy. And so it feels like Justin continuing to play into this matchup super well with all of that knowledge.
Yeah, I think one of the main things I'm watching out for here is the Encore mind games, right? You know your opponent is Encore, so is there any chance that you say, you know what, you're not actually going to click it, like, you know I have it. I think right now from Justin's end, he's got really good positioning, especially with Raging Bolt out, but Calyrex is kind of caught in a weird spot where you really don't want to just get Encore locked with that, right? So like this turn, I think the decision-making with Calyrex is going to be really, really crucial. It's Moonblast is the lock in there, and Calyrex is going to swap out, does not want to get Trick Room Encored.
Okay, so it's going to be the Urshifu that takes its place, though. And so if the Whimsicott doesn't go down here, it's going to be taking this Moonblast from the Whimsicott. As Incineroar switches out, we do see another pivot back into the Farigiraf, but that could be huge if this Whimsicott doesn't go down.
Yeah, it's going to be Thunderbolt immediately into the Farigiraf slot, boosted by that Electric Terrain, just gets the knockout immediately, and critically, no Encore coming out. So, yep, it's going to be a Moonblast here into Urshifu. Will this get the knockout? It will!
Does. Wow, a one-hit knockout onto the Urshifu that had to take that Calyrex's place. Where does that put Justin now with this Incineroar coming back in?
Yeah, this is interesting because you do get the Intimidate off, but where's the damage going to come from Rajan's end right now, right? Like, Whimsicott can Moonblast, but it's not doing... I mean, it'll do decent damage in a Raging Bolt, but you're also slower than Raging Bolt, right? So right now, Incineroar has the ability to click Fake Out, of course, but this is really scary for Rajan because as soon as you get another knockout, like the Miraidon just has to come out and you can't protect with it either, right? So you can still see there's 2 turns of Tailwind, 3 turns of Trick Room, so Justin just has the absolute speed advantage. I really like how he approached this game where he's like, I don't want to set up Trick Room immediately, but as soon as he found the opening, he went for it. And Urshifu fainting there actually benefits him because you just get the free switch him back into Calyrex. So Incineroar can Fake Out to buy some time this turn, but the problem is that you also have to deal with Raging Bolt on the opposing side, and this Incineroar can't even protect.
Yeah, it's so tough. Like, the Assault Vest is also not really helping you here, I feel like, because the Raging Bolt still has so many boosts to its electric-type attacks.
Yeah.
And with that Farigiraf down as well, you're threatened by that Thunderclap. There's no way to be able to stop that priority attack. So Justin already having the speed in his control, Rajan's really struggling to figure out what to do here.
Yeah, I don't really see too much of an out here unless Justin makes an egregious mistake. It's just going to be Fake Out here to start onto the Calyrex. Encore here now, yep, onto the Raging Bolt, but I think Raging Bolt's happy about that, right? Like, it's free to just keep clicking Thunderbolt right now, boosted by that electric terrain. Calyrex is going to flinch this turn. I do think that's the right target, but here's Thunderbolt coming out, targeting the Incineroar, and that's going to get a knockout.
And now, the exact situation as you were saying, Miraidon has to come back in, and it's not going to feel very good about that. And at least you get to set up the electric terrain again. Does that actually help you, though, when you can't protect in front of these Pokemon?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Like, the Encore was really nice, actually, to at least deny Draco Meteor this upcoming turn. And so, like, you can, Trick Room is about time, and there's still 2 turns. I think what makes this really difficult. Like, Miraidon can't protect, right? And so, it's like, right now, it's very easy to just go for Glacial Lance plus Thunderbolt. I think that's super safe. For Whimsicott here, I think Protect is absolutely the right call. You need to Protect and then maybe go for Moonblast next turn. So then, my question is, how much does the Miraidon take from this Glacial Lance plus Thunderbolt? Because you should get a knockout in return this turn, at least.
Right. So Glacial Lance, I guess we'll figure out how much it does, but I'm really curious about that Raging Bolt for sure. As the Miraidon's going to take about 40, maybe 40% from that, and the Thunderbolt follow-up is going to bring that Miraidon down to just a sliver of HP. That's a critical hit. That's wild. Draco Meteor does hit, though, so the Calyrex is going to get knocked out, but that's wild.
Okay, so yeah, committing to the Draco Meteor, which is exactly the move you need to lock into. You don't want to go for an electric type attack because then you're just going to lose against the Raging Bolt from the opposing side. And so there is an opportunity here. I mean, Tailwind Peter's out. Raging Bolt still has 1 more turn of Trick Room right now. It's also Encore. So I think what you can do here is just Thunderbolt into the Miraidon slot, and then, like, you could target Whimsicott here as well, but then you risk, like, Draco Meteor, for example. The thing is, Encore ends after this turn, right? So if you knock out Whimsicott, you expect to survive Draco Meteor. What you can do is just Thunderbolt Whimsicott here, then Thunderclap the Miraidon. And so it's a question, I think, of how confident Justin is with how he's trained. He's going to opt to target the Miraidon instead, saying, I'm willing to take 2 Moonblasts. So is there any chance that Moonblast will be able to get 2 knockouts here? Well, or a 2-hit knockout.
Yeah, if it does over 50%, then we're feeling really good about that if you're Rajan, but Whimsicott using the Moonblast, he's gonna bring that Raging Bolt down to below 50%, and now that the Encore has ended, oh man.
I'm just wondering now, the mind games, right? Is there anything, I'm trying to think, like, if you Thunderclap, for example, and with Encore, is there any way for this Whimsicott to actually pull it off? Obviously, if you click Moonblast right now and Raging Bolt just clicks the Thunderclap, you are just going to feint to Thunderclap. So we're going to see Protect here. I think the Protect might, you try to maybe bait out Thunderclap, and then you can try to Encore into Thunderclap. Like, there's some weird shenanigans going on here right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, Thunderclap does have a certain, like, a pretty low amount of power points, right? So maybe you just Protect now, bait it out, Encore it, and then you stall it out with, like, a cycling between.
There's a Thunderclap, though, so here we go. Now you can Encore into it. Yeah, oh my goodness. I think we're actually going to see Whimsicott take this first game. This is absolutely wild.
Because, yeah, you just stall it out now.
Yep.
Protect, Tailwind, cycle through all of those status moves to make sure that that Thunderclap is going to fail. Oh, my gosh.
This is a wild end to this first game. The Whimsicott trying to do its best. Thunderclap comes out again. Oh, my goodness. And like you said, yeah, now the goal is you are aiming to stall out the, okay, yeah, we're gonna just try to stall out. You go for Tailwind here. The idea is to just keep not going for attacking moves because you know the Raging Bolt has to click Thunderclap.
Yep, oh my gosh. I haven't been keeping a tally of all the Thunderclaps that have come out. Maybe I should have done that.
I think Encore mind games, or Encore in general, creates these, like, really weird situations. And yeah, you could see that Justin was a little bit disappointed when he saw the Protect come out, right? In that position, you could try to go for example, a Thunderbolt and then Thunderclap in the subsequent turn. But yeah, this is really, really dicey now. And so I'm trying to think, because there are some weird mechanics with, like, Thunderclap and with Encore and PP and Struggle as well. So we'll have to see how this plays out. But for the next couple of turns, it's just going to be stalling out Thunderclap and then going for Encore once again.
All right, well, there's another one. Oh, what do we have, 4 now, I think?
I think that was
4 or 5?
3?
3? I don't know anymore.
Oh, we saw one on, or we saw Thunderbolt earlier onto the Miraidon, so. Oh my goodness, this is crazy. Okay, so now you go for Tailwind again, you stall out another turn of Thunderclap, and then you Encore again. I think the main thing I'm curious about is whether or not Thunderclap was PP maxed.
Yes.
This is like one of those very unique situations where there's like a reason to actually not go for full PP max, specifically to get around like Encore shenanigans.
Oh my gosh, I'm thinking back to like Mikhail Kelsch is one of those players that did do that for the World team. So,
that's correct.
Yeah, I remembered. Maybe taking a page out of the book, but I don't know. If I were Justin, I would have made sure that that was PP Max.
Yeah, and I think like the one other thing to consider is like Justin theoretically could win on timer, but I don't think enough time is like passed in this game where it can come to that win condition right now. But that's just something to think about as we get to this end game. But this is wild. And it's very clear for Rajan what to do, right? It's like you Encore as soon as the Encore ends, you go for non-attacking moves in those couple of turns, and then you're looking to just stall out Thunderclap. So I don't remember. I'm thinking the times, yeah, I mean, like whether or not Thunderclap is PP. I would assume it is PP maxed here, and so if Rajan is keeping count, then yeah, you'll know exactly, you know, at 8 hits, you just stall it out perfectly and then attack on the final turn.
Yep. My goodness.
This is so tense, though. I really thought like Justin was in such a winning position after getting that Trick Room up, but Rajan, finding this Draco Meteor, connecting onto it, surviving that double up, removing that Clear Amulet early on to get that Intimidate was a really big deal as well onto a Calyrex Ice Rider.
And we've seen him come out of so many like tough situations. I even just think back to his top 8 match that he just played.
Yeah.
And that was so wild. Top 8, top 4, just all of it has been absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, the key thing that you have to do right now if you're Rajan is just make sure you are keeping track of the number of Thunderclaps that have happened.
If I have the notebook out, I am actually putting tallies down.
Actual tallies down, exactly,
yes. Because then you know exactly when to attack. But it's hard because does he have that knowledge from any of their previous games that Justin would have had the full PP?
Yeah, I'm also just wondering like how much time has elapsed in this game. Like the early game felt so explosive and fast that I don't think timer will end up being relevant here, especially because of the way, with like your time as well. Even if you take, for example, like 45 seconds in a turn, you only can take up to like, 2.5, 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes max. And so, of course, there's like the animations in game as well, but I don't think that's enough time to actually buy a win here, right? And so we'll have to see. But for now, it's just another Tailwind coming out to stall out another Thunderclap PP.
Oh my gosh. What is that, 5 now? I actually did stop counting. Because I'm like, it's only a matter of time, right?
Yeah,
but there's only one more turn of the Encore left. There's tons of Tailwinds available for this Whimsicott to go for. So now you just start thinking ahead to the second game, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now, like in a situation like this, you don't give up if you're Justin, right?
No,
because
not at
it's like
all.
all it takes is one mistake from Rajan's end, and you could maybe actually still end up winning. It's just. Yeah, you're like trying to take as much time as possible because the timer win condition certainly is a possibility. And like we said, I don't expect it to come into play here, but who knows? We'll have to see if like the 3-minute mark comes up on screen at any point. But
haven't seen it yet.
We're just kind of watching right now, slowly and surely, as the second round of Encore is about to end as well. And so I believe it was one Thunderclap PP committed initially. As Whimsicott's gonna go for the Tailwind there.
So here's another one.
Thunderclap, yeah. So that should be 7 Thunderclaps committed at this point, I think, because there was the first one, Encore ends, so now you just Encore again. Yeah, and then you Protect, and then you Moonblast, I think is the sequencing here. So
Still taking the time, though.
Rajan's got to make sure he's counted it properly, though.
And now we get a chance to find out whether or not that was actually everything, I guess. If there's 8, then we'll know.
Yeah, I think it's once you go for this Encore, like the main thing you want to make sure you don't have happen is you lose to Struggle, right? Like if you end up Tailwinding when there's no more PP and then you faint to Struggle, that would feel really bad. And so I think the proper sequencing here, it should be Encore, Protect, Moonblast, and that should end up securing Rajan the game, actually. So let's just see, at this point it's just making sure that you don't make the mistake of miscounting, but like you can do the math backwards here, right?
True. Ooh, a Protect.
Okay.
Okay, does this change anything now? Because Whimsicott gets to use the Encore into the
You just Encore into the Protect then, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I think you could just go for that and then
like stall more time.
Yeah, that's true.
You got a triple Protect?
Totally, yeah. I mean, that's the out here. So Raging Bull is going to go for the Protect. It's going to fail. Here's Encore coming out.
Into it too. So if it fails now, then it is going to be able to Protect next turn.
That's right.
Stalls for any more time, but we are starting to run out of your time. You can see that Justin only has 51 seconds remaining, and we still have yet to see that 3-minute timer pop up. So another protect, but might be an out here if you get 3 in a row.
Yeah, 2/3 chance now to just win the game immediately with Moonblast. We have reached the 3-minute timer, but the thing is, like you called out, Rosemary, your time is running dangerously low on the opposing side. So this turn alone can decide the game, right? Does the Raging Bolt get another protect off right now? If it does, we might be in for a more interesting endgame. And so, oh my goodness, it's gonna go for it. It's not gonna get it. And Whimsicott's Moonblast here will be able to secure the knockout on Raging Bolt. What an endgame we had here.
No way.
This was like an endgame that like Rajan theoretically should pretty much always win if he doesn't make mistakes. But
what if?
It's still really stressful, right? Because all it takes is like you miscounting one thing or making one slip up, and Justin can still win. So that's why you don't give up from either position, player's position. But wow, that was such a fun game.
So tense, so fun. I don't know how they're feeling about that. Rajan's probably feeling pretty good about it, though, just being able to play out that end game, because it can still be really stressful. And I know you've been in situations like this before, but like, does that stress ever get to you? Do you feel like mentally?
I think, you know, it totally does, but you just have to remember to control your nerves. There's so many small interactions that made a big deal in this game. Like the first one was knock off into Calyrex Ice Rider. You get rid of that clear amulet, so Incineroar's Intimidate greatly reduces the damage output of that Glacial Lands. We also saw the Encore onto the Raging Bolt. What that meant is that Raging Bolt had to lock into Thunderbolt, which meant that it could not go for Draco Meteor, for example, onto the Miraidon as well. And so like both of those small interactions actually played a really, really pivotal role. The last thing I was wondering is if whether or not the Raging Bolt could survive a -2 Draco Meteor, because if so, then what you do is just simply Thunderbolt knock out Whimsicott and then Thunderclap knock out Miraidon. So that damage calc is the one thing I'm actually very curious about.
It would be cool if we were able to figure that out maybe in this next game.
Let us know in chat. Do that calculation, because I don't know.
Somebody do the math for us, because we're not about to do that mentally from broadcast. But I also go back to even just the first turn. You were talking about Whimsicott potentially switching in on Rajan's side, and Justin actually played around that. Just targeting into that slot, maybe hoping that that would be a knockout if the Whimsicott came in, but it didn't.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a play that both players have seen before, so I wouldn't be surprised if like the line that Rajan took in that game was very different from maybe how he's approached the game previously, because at this point, Justin, once again to reiterate, has played against Rajan 3 times, now 4 times after this game. Justin also played against Aaron Trailer in top 8 in a 3-game set as well. So this is game number 8 against this composition, right?
Wow.
And there's the one key difference between Rajan and Aaron's team is that there's the Cornerstone Ogerpon here. And so Ogerpon could also be a difference maker because Justin did not have as much experience fighting against it in his previous round. But that was an exhilarating first game. Like, I cannot believe that Rajan was able to pull that one off. It was incredible after Justin set up that Trick Room.
Yeah, it was super, super well played, and why Encore can be really impressive. Whimsicott stocks are going up right now as maybe the premier Tailwind setter. But even just looking at the Encore as utility feels super nice. Justin, in the second game of this best-of-3 set, is going to be bringing the Ice Rider, Calyrex, and the Amoonguss, and Rajan with the Incineroar and the Miraidon once again.
Yeah, I think this is kind of just the default lead for both teams, and so once again, we have a lot of mind games immediately on turn 1, right? I think like at this point, you probably don't really want to think about Protect. Like, you've got to be worried about the option of the switch in here. Calyrex is going to switch out. We saw a Draco Meteor being launched into that slot. It's Raging Bolt!
Speaking of that calculation you wanted to figure out, we might be able to get it if it's going to be able to hit.
I wanted to know the -2 calc. This is definitely going to get the knockout, like without a doubt. You just have to connect on it. What an incredible play. Amoonguss goes for the Protect. Will Rajan start this game with an immediate lead? Fake Out is going to go into the Protect. You need the Draco Meteor to connect here. It's an absolutely incredible prediction to start. Does he get it?
It is going to be the hit. Draco Meteor into the Raging Bolt. A huge lead on this turn 1.
Oh my goodness. What a play by Rajan. Specifically expecting the Raging Bolt to come out. I mean, Draco Meteor also just does a ton of damage on a Calyrex Ice Rider, but to get the Raging Bolt feels so good because now you've cleared the one Pokemon that resists the Miraidon or has a 4x resistance to it, right? Like, yes, there's Grass Terra, yes, there's Amoonguss, but these Pokemon still take so much damage from a Terran Miraidon, and so that's such an early start to the game.
And there wasn't a Rage Powder or anything either.
Yeah.
Even still, Draco Meteor is going to do a lot of damage to that Amoonguss by itself, but that's still a huge Pokemon lead to take. The U-turn is going to come through into the Incineroar, so we get to see the 4th and final Pokemon for Justin in this game already.
Yeah, the U-turn here instead of Surging Strikes allows for some pivoting to go back out into Calyrex, but you're still staring down so much offense from the opposing side, right? And the Amoonguss feels so bad when there's Electric Terrain up. That's one of the reasons why Miraidon is such a great pick. Not only does Electric Terrain boost your damage out, but you also stop Spore. That's a -2 Draco Meteor. It still does 60% to the Calyrex Ice Rider. U-turn here also going to deal super effective damage, and so things are looking really tough for Justin already as Rajan has played the first 2 turns, I would say, perfectly.
Yeah, this is lights out right now. And even get a chance to see an adjustment here from Rajan to bring the Cornerstone Ogerpon into this game.
Yeah, I honestly don't really see much of an out here, especially with Pollen Puff going to Miraidon rather than self-target, because now Ogerpon just walls the Calyrex. You switch in a Whimsicott, you just keep targeting the Calyrex slot, you ignore Amoonguss, right? And Ogerpon doesn't care for Rage Powder, so even if Urshifu comes back out, you just go for Tailwind, you go for Power Whip. So the only way I can really see a loss at this point for Rajan is if it has to start with a Power Whip miss, honestly. And this Electric Terrain is just paying dividends, making Amoonguss feel so bad. But Calyrex here at least is going to pivot out, so the Urshifu here at least will be able to resist the turn, but you still have to deal with Tailwind plus Power Whip into that slot next turn.
Yeah, it's going to be so tough. Like, look at this Ivy Cudgel. It's already going to do like even a sizable chunk, even though it's not very effective. The Pollen Puff this time around from the Amoonguss, at least it breaks the Sturdy ability, but with the Tailwind as a response, just making sure that this Ogerpon is going to be faster. Still a call, though, that Rajan's making. Do you want to even just commit into the Urshifu with the Power Whip?
Yeah, I think Tailwind Power Whip is really safe. It is actually important to note, though, that it is Ghost Terror on the opposing Urshifu, and so, like, you do theoretically have a defensive Terror right now. I'm curious if it actually allows you to survive Power Whip. Depending on how Urshifu, I don't know, like that Ivy Cudgel did do a decent amount of damage, and so we'll have to see. There's also the option of just going straight for Moonblast here as well, but of course this is Choice Scarf Urshifu that you are staring down, and so looks like Rajan actually thinking about going for the Follow Me option. The reason to go for this is because you don't want to risk missing a Power Whip, right? And that's what I was talking about earlier, like the fear of that. It's going to be the Terra coming out here. I think that makes a lot of sense. You want to Terra the Urshifu here. Yep, there it is. And so it's going to turn into Ghost type, and the logic here is so that you don't faint to hopefully Power Whip. But as we saw, it also covers for Moonblast here.
Yeah, nice to be able to get rid of that super effective damage, but the Follow Me too, I think you're okay with sacrificing the Ogerpon. It's kind of already done a lot of damage, and you get a chance to get a free switch into the Miraidon a little bit later. And this Whimsicott's getting away scot-free, because it's the Surging Strikes that this Ogerpon is going to take.
Totally, yeah. And Moonblast will still do reasonable damage. If this were Sludge Bomb Amoonguss, I actually think this game would look pretty differently, especially if Amoonguss were able to like get a Poison here immediately, for example, but it can only click Pollen Puff. Now, the thing is, you can side Pollen Puff into the Urshifu. That Moonblast does do a lot of damage.
Oh, and it is!
It is going to be side Pollen Puff. Okay, so a really nice turn by Justin there. Yeah, I was really curious if Tailwind Power Whip like just gets the knockout there. However, now you can switch into Miraidon, and what you can do is go for, I think, Tailwind, Electric Terra, Discharge. Like, obviously, it doesn't feel great to go for Discharge onto your own Pokemon, but at this point, it just does so much damage across the board. Amoonguss doesn't have a Citrus Berry either. You still have Terrain up, and so I think that's what I would opt for. The key thing here, though, is there's only one turn of Terrain left, and so what you can do is then switch out the Urshifu and a Calyrex Ice Rider, sacrifice it, so then at least Electric Terrain is gone. Looks like here, Rajan is actually considering just the option of Tailwind and Volt Switch here, but it's a little bit vulnerable to Rage Powder and Surging Strikes.
Yeah, I mean, the Rage Powder is already going to redirect away that Volt Switch, but even without the Electric Terror that we've seen on the Miraidon, it's still going to do a pretty good chunk of damage. But I think importantly as well, like we still get to see this Urshifu go for another move.
Yeah, I think critically here, so Rajan's saying, you know, you might maybe switch Urshifu out into Calyrex Ice Rider. I don't care if you Surging Strikes or Close Combat into Incineroar. I mean, you have to click Surging Strikes because you're Scarfed. But if you knock out Incineroar, well, that's great because I just get the free switch him back into Miraidon. And what's so important about using Miraidon is timing your Electric Terrain turns perfectly. And so this is actually a dream scenario because now at this point, you get the Miraidon back in, you set up Electric Terrain once again. And I think at this point, you're actually free to just go for Electric Terra and start discharging everything. So I think Discharge this turn probably also would have won the game, but essentially the idea is to cover for Urshifu switching to Calyrex Ice Rider.
Yeah, just make sure you're not opening yourself up to unnecessary outs. It's like what you were talking about with the Power Whip miss. It would have been even more of a way for Justin Burns to be able to get back into this match.
Yeah.
But Miraidon getting back in, gets a chance to set up the Electric Chain once again with its signature ability. And it might be time to finally go ahead and hit that Terra button.
I think so. Here we go. Terra Electric Discharge. I think we're just going to see 3 knockouts in 2 to 3 turns right now.
Yeah, nice that the Whimsicott gets a chance to keep its Focus Sash by going for the Protect as well. So you're at least able to stop yourself from hitting your partner for 1 turn, but we have seen this Discharge Terra Electric combo do so much damage from this Miraidon.
There's no chance this is either of these are surviving, I think. I mean, Amoonguss took so much just to begin with from these. This is why it's like I don't really call it a resistance, right? And honestly, even if Amoonguss survives, what is it going to do? It cannot even click Spore right now. So a beautiful endgame setup here by Rajan. It's going to be Protect from the Amoonguss, but that's not really going to help because now you can just Encore the Protect in the subsequent turn. Discharge is going to come out. There's no chance the Urshifu is going to survive. Calyrex then come out. And then you try to protect with Calyrex, but then you just get Encore trapped anyway, right? And so I just don't see an out here at this point. I think the Miraidon will just pick up every knockout.
Well, let's go ahead and watch the spectacle as Urshifu is going to be the first to fall, and Justin forced into bringing in his final 2 Pokemon, that Ice Rider Calyrex, having to take its place.
That turn 1 Draco Meteor, once again, was so beautiful. You do not get to get away with this if the Raging Bolt still exists, right? But with Raging Bolt getting eliminated immediately, it completely opens the door for Miraidon. So I just love the conviction to go for a play like that immediately. And I really like the Ogerpon adjustment here as well. So yeah, very free to Encore now. You click Discharge, and Miraidon's just looking to pick up every knockout. Justin recognizes, I've lost this. And Rajan, with his Miraidon team, will secure a spot in the finals as he chases his first regional championship victory.